It's great to have Ian Castleberry joining with the Wise Guys. So in for Chris Womack's time slot. Chris going to join us a little later on in the show. And, of course, it's great to have Ian with us via the D.C. Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines. And, Ian, so good to have you. And, boy, do we have some good topics to get to, friend.
Yeah, good stuff. Anytime we can rip on Angel Hernandez.
Dude, you're like that. I was telling Charlie, every time there's an Angel Hernandez story, you are my first thought because you've been raging on this guy for nearly a decade on this show, buddy. And we're going to get to Angel Hernandez here coming up in just a moment. There's some other goodies, though, to get to from Major League Baseball. Let's start first, Ian. As a Tigers fan, I know the fan base is awfully proud. Miggy gets hit number 3,000. And, Ian, I'm not sure if there's a player in Major League Baseball history that has put up historic-type numbers so quietly.
Yeah, and I guess this is part that, the Tigers haven't been very good in recent seasons. And even when Miguel Cabrera signed that contract extension, the massive contract extension back in 2014, it was pretty clear that he was not going to live up to this contract, that the Tigers were paying him for what he had done rather than what he would continue to do, yet he was being paid as one of the top hitters in Major League Baseball. But what I will say about that is that Tigers owner Mike Ilitch since passed away. Mike Ilitch always rewarded his players with thank you for your service contracts. He did it with the Tigers. He did it with the Detroit Red Wings, basically thanking them with exorbitant contracts for what they had done in the past. But more than that, Mike Ilitch did not want to see Miguel Cabrera hit his 500th home run or get his 3,000th hit in another uniform. And that's why he locked down Miguel Cabrera to this massive contract that will expire after next season, because he wanted, perhaps knowing that the Tigers would be bad, at least the Tigers fans would have this one moment to get excited about and to celebrate.
That's pretty awesome right there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you're a Tigers fan, it makes you want to go out to the ballpark to see this historic guy,
Yeah, and they played it up for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt. As a matter of fact, I think it was Friday's game. I think he was, Brett Boone made that decision to intentionally walk Cabrera, and Tigers fans just lost their minds over that. It's like, they know it's a strategy, but darn it, they don't care. They came here to see Miggy get 3,000. And it didn't happen. But congrats to him. He's just a solid guy. And yeah, Ian, it's funny. I forgot he was with Miami. It just seems like moons ago.
Oh, that trade happened quite a while ago. It was 2007, I believe it was.
Yeah.
I was covering the Tigers at the time. That came out of nowhere at the winter meetings. That all of a sudden the Tigers had a chance to get Miguel Cabrera. And Asheville fans might know Cameron Maben was part of that trade. Andrew Miller, also two of the Tigers' top prospects, went to Miami in that deal. But yeah, I'm sure you guys and the listeners have seen some of the numbers or factoids about Miguel Cabrera getting his 3,000th hit. He's the sixth player with 3,000 hits and 500 homers. The third player in Major League history with a 300 average, 3,000 hits, 500 homers. But I think we also have to talk about, we may not see a player get 3,000 hits again in our lifetime. There's no one close right now. The closest is Robinson Cano. He has 2,631 hits, and he's at the end of his career. Yadier Molina has 2,100 hits. Joey Votto, I thought he would have had more hits than this, but Joey Votto has just over 2,000 hits. Nelson Cruz. I mean, you look at some of the stars today. Mike Trout has 1,433 hits. Manny Machado, just over 1,400 hits. Nolan Arenado has 1,300 hits. We'll see plenty of guys get 2,000 hits, I think, but Miguel Cabrera might be the last we see get 3,000 hits.
It's pretty impressive, Ian. You're talking about lists that he's on. When you look at the other people that are on those lists, and, there's 6 or 7 guys in the whole history of baseball. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about names like Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Ted Williams, Albert Pujols, and Miguel Cabrera is right up there with those all-time greats. And again, maybe this didn't get the attention maybe that it could have because the Tigers – aren't that good right now, and Miguel Cabrera hasn't been the same player for quite a few years. But we're going to look back on this and just be amazed that we got to watch this guy play and the company that he's keeping, as you pointed out.
I'm a music dork. It reminds me of just a band that, doesn't really get the appreciation it deserves in its prime. But until you look back on it, they've been gone for 10 or 12 years. And you're like, wow, what a catalog they had. Wow, there's just like this new respect for them. And you're right. And thank you for bringing that up. I meant to ask you that. There really doesn't seem to be anyone in line. I mean, the guys who are closest are all in their 30s. And I just don't know if that's going to happen. Ian, do you think baseball's going to have to lower its standards in terms of like what gets you into the Hall of Fame? Because it looks like 3,000 hits is going to have to be lowered to like 2,700.
Yeah, I think that bar is going to have to come down. We're already seeing it to some extent. And, of course, 500 homers, maybe not as special as it used to be with the skyrocketing numbers that we've seen in recent years. But, yeah, I think those milestones, those bars will come down as it's just clear that the players that are eligible for a Hall of Fame aren't going to reach what, we viewed previously as automatic milestones. 3,000 hits, oh, yeah, he's in. 500 homers, sure, he's in. And the players aren't going to be reaching those numbers in future seasons.
Yeah, I think it's just going to go back to how good was this player in his time, and was he the best player among the best players in his time? That's who knows where that's going to go, but interesting to follow nonetheless. As Ian Castleberry joins the Wise Guys, our Major League Baseball update for this Monday via the D.C. Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines. All right, Ian, you and I both love our movies, and I just saw that there's a Nolan Ryan movie coming out, in May.
Yeah, it's going to premiere after the Rangers game. I believe it showed at the Sundance Film Festival. This is, at least initially, this is going to be, if you're familiar with this and the listeners are familiar with this, it'll be on May 24th, a one-night event through Phantom Events, probably showing at the Carolina or at the Regal Theater. You'll have to buy maybe a more expensive ticket to see that for one night, but eventually I'm sure it'll either be available on streaming or show on maybe MLB Network or something. But it's called Facing Nolan, a documentary about Nolan Ryan and chronicles his amazing 27-year career. And we talk about Miguel Cabrera and numbers we probably won't ever see again. Nolan Ryan certainly has plenty of numbers that other pitchers aren't going to reach. 324 career wins, 5,700 strikeouts, 5,714 to be exact. And, of course, 7 no-hitters. And the last one when he was 44 years old. We're not going to see another pitcher put up numbers like that, reach achievements like that in their career.
I don't think we'd see an alien put up those kind of numbers, quite frankly. It makes me question Nolan Ryan. Is he of this earth? He's amazing. Arguably, I'd say the top 3. I would put it as Cy Young, Nolan Ryan, and Walter Johnson. Walter Johnson won more games, but didn't have as many strikeouts as Nolan Ryan, and certainly on the no-hitter end. And you could make an argument, maybe Nolan's the greatest of all time, but I saw the trailer. It's awesome. I'm not sure I'm ready to go into a theater yet, so I may have to figure out some other way to do it. But, man, I want to see that for sure. It got my blood going. I'm like, this is – because it just reminded me how awesome Nolan Ryan was. And just remember, it was funny. I got a good friend of mine, Mike Berrigan, out in San Diego. Mike was a great baseball player in high school. And Mike's claim to fame for him is that Robin Ventura hit a 3-run homer off him when he was a senior. And when the whole Nolan Ryan thing went down and he kicked the crap out of Robin Ventura, I got with Mike and I said, dude, Nolan Ryan took care of it for you, pal. Don't worry. It's Ian Castleberry's with the Wise Guys. Ian, the A's, the embarrassing attendance numbers, for instance, exactly, just over 2,700 to one game. Boy, if they get past 5,000, it's like they're probably doing somersaults. But one fan said the fan base is there, but is boycotting games because ownership has done next to nothing in 20 years. It's been Moneyball, which you just take the money out of it because it's more about ball in that case. But is that the reason in your mind, Ian?
I think so. Maybe that's oversimplifying it to just one reason. But, yeah, the fan base is there. But I've heard from fans who live in the Bay Area, part of the problem is that ballpark is just more difficult to get to for fans where it's located. That's a factor. Of course, we've seen the A's completely tear down their team. They traded Matt Olson. They traded Matt Campbell. They traded Sean Mania, one of their best pitchers. Chris Bassett, they traded to the Mets. Even their manager, Bob Melvin, was allowed to leave for the San Diego Padres in the offseason. And they're not done yet. Frankie Montas, one of their top pitchers, he's almost certain to be traded as well. And as a result, the A's, they have the lowest payroll in Major League Baseball. I believe it's $33 million as a team. There are players that are going to be paid more than that this season. Max Scherzer, Corey Seager, Carlos Correa, Mike Trout. There's a couple more, too. But those players by themselves are going to make more money than the A's are going to pay their entire roster this season. And now there are other factors. Last week, with those low numbers on Tuesday and Wednesday, there was heavy rain in the area. The Baltimore Orioles were the opponent. I don't think everybody's going to drive out
the Orioles are the equivalent of like a torrential rainstorm. It's like no one's going to show up.
Yeah, and then also you have the ballpark itself, right? It's falling apart. Sewage floods the dugouts or comes out of the pipes. The team doesn't want to be there. They're trying to get a taxpayer-funded stadium there in Oakland. Don't know if that's going to happen or not. The team's flirting with Las Vegas to move there. Portland would like to talk to the A's about moving there. So it's all of those factors. I mean, I think that fan is right. But, yeah, I think the fans are there, but they just feel, they love the A's, but the A's aren't loving them back.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And Charlie, Las Vegas is becoming Oakland East. The Raiders are already there. And Vegas has shown now they got two professional teams. Sports gambling is just completely blown up. Now suddenly it's the thing to do. I think the A's need a change of scenery here. I was at that ballpark when I was going to college up in Chico. I'm talking 1988 when they had that great team and McGuire and there was maybe 10,000 people there. We were able to sneak all the way down to the front. We were literally hanging out with the A's bullpen. And no one bothered us because, they're probably thinking, well, at least they're here.
Yeah.
And there's no one down there. It's pretty bad. And that's just so sad because, the A's can be something. And I know they've got issues, as Ian pointed out, new stadium and Vegas will say, whatever you need.
Say Vegas looks like they're all over that.
Yeah. Have you seen an aerial shot of Las Vegas, like a drone shot? There's a lot of land out there. They just keep building houses. Just build a ballpark and be done with it. Vegas is a pro-friendly city for that. For sure. All right, Ian Castleberry joins the Wise Guys via the D.C. Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines, our baseball update for this Monday. All right, so Ian, this is good. We got the two last topics are classic. Kyle Schwarber of the Nats, this, you've seen it, ejected for arguing the strike zone with your buddy, home plate umpire Angel Hernandez. Ian, looks like Schwarber had a case here, huh?
First of all, you see the pitch itself. You go to Twitter or YouTube, you can see, the pitch was clearly outside to Kyle Schwarber, but he did have one of the all-time tirades, threw down the bat, threw down the helmet, then demonstrated, that the plate's this wide. You're calling pitches up here. You're calling them over there. You're calling them over here. And he kept yelling, all night, both sides. And Joe Girardi, of course, came out there to argue, it was far too late. Schwarber was ejected the second he threw his bat. But the Milwaukee Brewers also, after the game, they had things to say about that. Omar Narvaez said, the strike zone wasn't good. He said at least it was consistent for both teams, but it was not a good strike zone. Andrew McCutchen was upset getting called out on strikes. The Brewers manager, Craig Counsell, said it was a consistently big zone. It was just a little big in a lot of areas.
Yes, a little big.
Which is a funny way of putting it. And then you have some social media accounts. On Twitter, there's an account called Umpire Auditor that showed that Hernandez missed. He called 11, what should have been 11 strikes. He called them as balls. He only got 85% of his calls correct, which sounds good, but that means he actually missed many pitches. And Hernandez is just consistently one of the worst umpires in Major League Baseball. Anytime he's behind home plate, it's going to be an adventure. I know Hernandez, he tried to have a lawsuit, a discrimination lawsuit against Major League Baseball, trying to argue that he was denied promotions or assignments because of his ethnicity. But everybody else would point to, dude, you stink. You should be, if umpires were demoted to the minors, as I think they should be, or if they should at least have to answer to the press after the game, like any other player who performed badly. Angel Hernandez, he would be punished. He would be penalized. He would have to face the media. Yet they get protected because of their union, and Angel Hernandez just continues to skate by.
Wow, that's hey, look, he sucks in any ethnicity. All right, I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah. It's not ethnicity; it's ability. Yeah.
Oh my God, Charlie. By the way, as a longtime coach, was there always like one official, like lead ref? You're like, oh boy, it's going to be a long night, fellas.
There's certain umpires that you're going to get holding calls if they're there. It doesn't matter what, which game it is or anything like that. But and certain ones that are going to control the game differently than others. Yeah. But nobody quite to this magnitude that you would. I mean, just people that had in football that you knew how they called, but nothing like this. Ian, I told Pat, I think Hernandez had somewhere to go. So he said, look, anything that's close, I'm going to call a strike. You better get up here and swing.
Got dinner reservations at 11. My
this
favorite.
Game's got
Sunday night, maybe he had to get away, had to get out of town, try to catch that last flight out of Philly.
He's perfect for that Snickers commercial. Need to get away? Yes, I do, because I suck and the fans hate me. Oh, boy. Ian Castleberry talks baseball, also NFL Gold Nuggets Thursdays with the Wise Guys and with Barrett Sports Media. And finally, Ian, why are teams such as, say, the Nationals accusing Giants manager Gabe Kapler of blowing off the unwritten rules in baseball? He's kind of becoming unpopular amongst his peers.
Yeah, Gabe Kapler, I'm not a Giants fan. I'm quickly becoming a Gabe Kapler fan. I mean, I do think he kind of got a raw deal in Philadelphia. I mean, I know his one-loss record justified his being fired, but I think he was a better manager than he was allowed to show in Philadelphia, and we're seeing it now with the Giants. And part of this is because Kapler and the Giants as a team are kind of pushing back against these so-called unwritten rules. Now, what happened in this game against the Nationals, I think it was a 7-1 lead in the ninth inning, and the Giants base runner, Thairo Estrada, was not being held on first base. So he stole second base. And with a 6-run lead, the Nats were up in arms about it. Alcides Escobar and Victor Robles were upset. They were going toward the Giants dugout, yelling at Kapler, yelling at the players. But Gabe Kapler, he says, look, we're going to be more aggressive. We're not just trying to win games. We're trying to win series. We're trying to score as many runs as we can. We're trying to force the other team to use up all of their pitchers if that ends up hurting them in the rest of the series. And though this hasn't been mentioned in any of the reporting I've seen, I think it's worth pointing out that Major League Baseball is going to have different tiebreakers this season. It's going to be similar to what the NFL does with tiebreakers. There's not going to be, a one-game playoff, a game 163, or a wild card one-game playoff anymore. So it could come down to who scored more runs, in the division against a division opponent, for instance. Yeah. And I think the Giants are looking ahead and saying, okay, we got it. We have to win every series, especially in our division. We have to win a series in our league. We have to score more runs than our opponents if it comes down to tiebreakers for postseason spots.
Man, it's going to be funny. I'm sure other managers, because that does make sense. I mean, at the end of the year, and you're in that race, and you're like, God, we lost out by 2 runs. Those would be, I can understand that, and I'm sure there are other managers now probably thinking, maybe I should be doing the same thing. You just look. These are professionals; they get paid a whole lot, right? They're not 8-year-olds. We're going to cry after. Okay, I probably shouldn't go that far with some players, but you get the point. I mean, they're pro ball players, and you know what? Just don't let it get to that point. I guess that's the best advice they can get. Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys. Always appreciate you, friend. Have a great rest of the day, and we can't wait on draft day to maybe go over some hot rumors, see where the Panthers are with you coming up that day, I believe, at 3:15.
Yeah, maybe we'll see some trades happen right before the draft there.
Let's hope so. We'll all be watching closely. Appreciate you, friend, as always.
Okay, enjoy yourselves, guys.
You got it. Thank you, Ian, so much, man. That's Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys. All right.